Hello again and happy Thursday from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. Ms. Satu Hassi, who served in the maybe between 1995 and 2002, or at least from between 1995 and 1999 as Finland's Minister of the Environment, who is a longtime member of the environmentally minded Green League, an environmentalist party in Finland, and also used to be a member of the Finnish Parliament and later a member of the European Parliament, has contributed or assisted in the writing of this article to the current affairs website Fair Observer, which is probably also a digital magazine or newspaper dedicated to the current affairs. Anyway, the article's title surprised me as a Finnish expatriate because I do follow Finnish news and also the Finnish weather, at least based on the domestic news section of the public Finnish broadcasting company Yle.'s website quite closely. And I must admit, although I'm a layperson in these matters, that I'm not sure if this is totally true. Finland is warming at twice the global rate because there are months and weeks in Finland which are exceptionally cold at times. Although the current general trend is that winters are getting milder. However, as far as the other seasons warming is concerned, I'm not sure if there's a consistent trend towards that. Well, maybe to some extent in the springs and autumns, but at least not in the summers, I don't think. Anyway, this article was published on the Fair Observer website on May the 21st, 2019. And Mr. Kourosh Ziabari, an award-winning Iranian journalist, interviewed Ms. Hassi for this article, describing Finland as a country of fascinating and stark contrasts, long and glittery summer nights, especially in June, to some extent in July, and short snowy winter days, and especially from November to January. The midnight sun and the winter darkness, most vividly, of course, observed in the far north of Finland, in Lapland. The country earned its nickname, the Land of the Midnight Sun, because of the sun that doesn't set at all in its northernmost parts during the summer months. On the other hand, in those parts, there is that midwinter gloom of several weeks. Finland is a land of islands boasting some 187,888 lakes and is believed to be one of the most extensive and unspoiled natural environments in Finland. However, Finland has been affected by global warming and climate change in its own ways. The Finnish Meteorological Institute has projected that in the near future, temperatures will rise, precipitation will surge, snow cover and soil frost will reduce, cloud cover will increase, sunshine will decrease, and sea level in the Baltic Sea will rise. June 2017 was the fourth warmest one in 137 years. And then the summer of 2018, that is from the time from June to August, which meteorologically, according to the official division of seasons, is the summer time in Finland. That was one of the warmest summers ever since the regular temperature records began to be kept in the 19th century in Finland. In 2015, Finland's National Climate Change Act entered into force, laying down provisions on climate policies and monitoring the implementation of climate objectives. The long-term greenhouse gas emission reduction target set by the legislation is aimed at 80% by 2050. The Environment Ministry is tasked with multiple responsibilities to mitigate the impacts of climate change on Finland. In this edition of the Interviewer, Fair Observer talks to Satu Hassi, Finland's former environment minister, about the Northern European nation's fight against climate change and its government's policies to tackle global warming. The interview was conducted at the end of 2018. The text has been lightly edited for clarity. Journalist Kourosh Ziabari, how is Finland affected by global warming? Do you think it can win the fight against climate change? Ms. Satu Hassi replied, and I will, of course, shorten These replies, I have to give a private lesson in English to two girls after this video ends. In the north, including Finland, the warming rate is approximately double compared to the global average. Finland has warmed approximately 2 degrees Celsius after mid-19th century. For example, now almost all of Finland, including the northern part of the country, Lapland, is snow-free, which we find extremely unusual in the second half of November. For example, a few weeks back, there was a World Cup winter sport event in Ruka, northern Finland, but there was no snow. They had to produce snow artificially for the cross-country skiing lanes. Ziabari. Finland is known as a forest-rich country with forests considered to be green gold, in quotation marks, and part of its national identity. How does the government's new climate and energy strategy unveiled in 2017, which is based on increasing logging by nearly 25%, undermine the potential use of these woodlands as a carbon sink? Ms. Hassi, I disagree strongly with our government on the plans to increase logging. This would reduce the carbon sink formed by our forests, which would be as bad for climate as increasing greenhouse gas emission. Mr. Ziabari, you once mentioned in one of your interviews that collection systems for plastic recycling are inadequate. Is it something specific to Finland, or is the whole of Europe suffering from this? Is there any significant investment underway to make up for the inadequacy? Ms. Hassi, the inadequacy is global. Recently, I read that even fish caught from the Amazon River had pieces of plastic in their digestive system. Now it is possible for normal families to bring their plastic waste to containers, which will be brought to a plastic recycling plant, not incinerated. Mr. Ziabari, are the negative environmental impacts of aviation a serious challenge or concern for the European Union? An agreement to exclude international aviation from the EU's emissions trading scheme, ETS, for another 4 years was reached between the European Parliament and the Council of Europe in 2014. That period has expired now. How is the situation presently? Ms. Hassi, originally the EU directive which brought aviation to the EU emissions trading scheme was written in such a way that after a transitional period of some years, the ETS would cover all flights arriving to EU and departing from the EU. But China and the US threatened to start a trade war. The EU bowed to this pressure and amended the directive in such a way that only flights inside the EU are covered by the ETS. The ideal solution would be emissions trading covering all flights globally, or a global carbon tax for all flights. The revenues could be used to support climate measures, both mitigation and adaptation in developing countries. Mr. Ziabari, how is the European Union and Finland in particular dealing with concerns over worldwide food insecurity? A report by the Food and Agriculture Organization shows that the diversity of cultivated crops fell by 75% during the 20th century, and 1/3 of today's varieties could disappear by 2050. What are the implications of this decline in the diversity of nutrients for EU citizens? Ms. Hassi, it is very worrying. This has been an issue of political debate in the European Parliament. For global food security, I think climate mitigation is even more important. A warming climate will reduce crops, especially in the tropical and subtropical latitudes. Mr. Ziabari, you once referred to air quality as one of the success stories of environmental policy. How is the situation with air pollution in Europe today? While 80% of Europeans are exposed to particulate matter level above the limits stipulated by the World Health Organization, is air quality a major concern, or has it been tackled? Ms. Hassi, the air quality in European cities is much better than it used to be, which you can see with your own eyes. For example, in Finnish cities, the new snow stays white much longer than it did in the 1980s, but still there is a lot of work to be done. It is still estimated that 400,000 Europeans die prematurely because of air pollution. The sulfur dioxide emissions are less than 10% compared to their peak value in the 1980s. The maximum sulfur content of maritime fuel was reduced from 1% to 0.1% on January the 1st, 2015, and on January the 1st, 2020, it will be reduced from 3.5% to 0.5% in all other sea areas. This is a major step forward for air quality, especially in coastal areas. The views expressed in this article are the author's own and do not necessarily reflect Fair Observer's editorial policy. As always, my disclaimer: no copyright infringement intended. Take care and God bless all of you.